Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. I will begin with a brief description of what's happening here. Even though this is Mahip and there are labels out there that describe the character Mahip as, let's say, a therapist or a husband, a father. There's so many different ways Mahip is described in the world. The intention for me to be in this group is to join in, to express the meanness, the minus, or the being absolutely naked or without, or trying to exist while those roles or identities come up as feelings. So this is how I'm sharing my meditation, which is actually just me. So I'm saying these things out loud that are usually going on in this mind, let's say. And even when I say in this mind, that itself is contradictory. I don't know where the mind is. I'm pointing towards this physical head. And it sounds very frustrating sometimes. And sometimes it clicks. Sometimes it's fun. And sometimes it's relatable. And sometimes it's confusing. However, what I have learned in the last few years, that the genuine sharing of experience, of moment by moment arising awareness or arising thoughts or feelings and sensations, that genuine open sharing leads to always this, often and maybe always leads to this beingness or nothingness or emptiness. Often this description starts with a sense of that meaningful sentences or thoughts are getting connected to each other, and a meaning is formed out of those thoughts, and then that meaning is communicated to, let's say, apparently arising other people. And yet what I keep going back to, or what I keep realizing, or what I keep noticing, is this presence, or nothing, or no thing, or empty, and at the same time it's full. So what I'm trying to describe is this empty silence, which never goes or comes, which is never lost or gained. That is what I like to talk about in this specific setting. And there's no fixed structure. Or what we did last week was I just gave a small description like this. We dived into a contemplation meditation, and then we opened up for question answers, or like a discussion. And one important element that I want to express is this is not a teaching. I am not giving a teaching, because teaching is something, if I would say, I know, for example, if I can, maybe Mahip can teach how to do therapy. Sure, that's what Mahip went to school for, and I'm training other people to do that. So that's something that can be taught as a technique, as a therapy, as a process. But this is just, Mahip is lost and Mahip is never found. That's the feeling. So how can I teach something that cannot be comprehended into a form or into a concept? So this is just Mahip trying to put words onto that experience that can never be put into words. So therefore, calling this a teaching would be very accurate. Is this making sense? And not making sense it's also not making sense to the Mahip's mind. So I'm just be genuine there too. A lot of it does make sense to mind. And there's a lot there that has no sense, no meaning, no grasping. So what happens in my observation is like, because the mind has the tendency to grasp and put things into a box or a concept. And in this kind of a discussion, that grasping does not really happen often, or it's frustrating for the mind because it cannot grasp what is being suggested or communicated. And then the mind has no option but to just give up out of frustration, or let go out of peace. Either can happen. And I want to say apparently happen, because it seems like it's happening, but at the same time, nothing is really happening. I'll stop here. And before we move ahead, just want to check in what came up for others. As this was literally a contemplation of the moment. There was a naturally genuine contemplation that was happening. So I'm just checking in with others. What comes up for you? Thank you, Katie.
I just sent my note in the chat because I didn't know if we were talking during this or not. But yeah, I love that like concept of like frustration. Like when you're frustrated, it probably means that you're clinging to something. And I do always feel better when I notice that, and when I can like surrender, I usually call it, like just surrender to what's happening. But I think that's the same as what you're saying, like letting go out of peace. So I like, if I could tattoo that on my arm or something, I think it would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yes, makes sense to me. And I'm gonna say, Gloria, thank you so much for joining. We are just discussing, continuing some things from the last week and something which seems completely new.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm late. Once again, I couldn't find the link. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay. What about others? Is something coming up for you as right now about this topic?
Yeah. The kind of the paradox route to letting go of conceptual thought, for whatever reason, never worked particularly well for me. My mind, the conceptual mind, for me, that part of me gets just so graspy and puzzle solvy about the paradoxes that it isn't able to give up and let go. I found from the meditative discipline that I'm more familiar with, when there's a part of the mind that's doing something that's taking us out of pure being, it usually means it's defending something. And when the conceptual mind is grasping too closely to concepts and mistaking them for true being, in my personal experience, that's been because it's protecting against fear of the unknown, fear of not having a conceptual understanding of what's happening to me. There's a kind of frightening letting go required for that part of me in that experience. So to get into pure being, I had to really spend time with that fear, to understand where that fear of non-conceptual being was coming from.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing, Ash. Yes, Gloria.
I think I can relate to Ash and also Catherine very well. that Mahib knows that I have some health conditions, and with my mind, I can reason that everyone is dying. You should accept it, and all those reasonings that we hear about. And then emotionally, so I went through that, and then emotionally, I'm thinking it's okay. Even if I die, I don't have any regrets. I lived my life fully, so it's okay. And yet I was probably feeling fear, but I think it was last week, there was another level of, like Catherine was saying, surrender. There was, I don't know how to explain, but there was another acceptance of the situation. So in the beginning, I was just bulldozing through life, through pain, physical pain. And then it was, it's okay. I was trying to make myself think that it's okay. And then the state that I am now, or I kind of felt was, I don't know, like Ash, I don't know how to explain. It's acceptance, and yet it's not giving up that I'm going to die, but accepting, and I'm still going to live and choose the better way to maybe live longer, or happy, or whatever. But I don't know how to explain. I'm sorry. I went to another state, which is different from emotional and also the mind.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I couldn't explain well.
I think you did a good job of communicating what's your experience. Thank you so much for sharing, Gloria. Yeah, I want to bring up, and I want to hear from Jonathan if he wants to. And is there something else that's coming up for you, Jonathan?
Currently, no, but
Okay,
I'll talk if something does come up.
sure. Thank you for letting me know. So after hearing what's arising in this mind is these two concepts of, like, let's say, the small self, the I. So even while listening to Ash or Gloria describe their experience, what was happening here was suddenly this question: who is this I? Who is this I? Who is I who's doing this? Who is I who's thinking like? And I know that there has this question of who am I has been incepted into the system due to a lot of past practices and a lot of spending time with certain teachers who have that kind of inner self-inquiry technique. So naturally that question just keeps coming up all day long into this, let's say, system. And then the other two concepts that come to mind is that one is the concept of I, the person, let's say the small s self. The other one is the self with a capital S, or the awareness. And again, I'm calling them as concepts. This is how the mind has made sense of so far. What's happening is this small I often has two streams of thoughts, wanting something to happen or defending something from happening, needing or acquiring or gaining, or fearing the loss of something. So anxiety, fear, or let's say greed, wanting, craving. So it can use any label, but these are usually the two thought streams that fuel this I, the personal I. And when the attention is moved away from these two kind of thinking, or when the question arises, who am I? What tends to happen is this question works as a flashlight and goes and looks for who's this I, who's wanting, or who is avoiding. So the attention actually goes to the I instead of going to the thoughts. Usually the attention stays stuck in the thinking, and it goes on and on and on, repetitive and very excruciating sometimes. But it can also be fun and fantasy. I want this, or I wish I had this house or vacation. So the attention gets lost in that. But with this question, who am I? The attention becomes like a flashlight and looks for this I. And what happens in that looking itself is this individual, separate, small I that I think I am is not found. Even like right now, it just always makes me laugh. Like the moment I look for this I that I think that I'm this Mahip, I haven't found him. I just don't. It's Mahip is nothing but that name that parents gave me, and this feeling that keeps coming whenever Mahip spends time with other people. This projection from so many people. Oh, Mahip, you're so good at this. Or why did you do that? Like there's so many definitions and memories of being me or Mahip that keeps this I going on and on as a feeling. But then when there's a simple looking through this flashlight, this Mahip feels like this shadow, as if there's a shadow behind me, and if I put the flashlight on the shadow instantly goes away, as if it was never there. So this is what often keeps happening internally. And even when I was listening, or when I say I was listening, in that question itself, the moment the I word comes, the question comes, who am I? Who is listening? So there's a constant process going on, and then there's an eventual pause. There's a stopping. There's stretches of nothingness. So there's a feeling that, oh, there's nobody here. Then what's there to do? What's there to seek? And yet this seeking energy comes up and goes. So I'm just saying what happened internally in this system as I was listening to Ash and Gloria. And the second concept of the S with a capital S self is the awareness, who's just what's here. I have never seen that awareness, or I have not like formulated, even though I use a concept or word called awareness, I don't know it as the way I know a laptop or a person or an experience or an emotion. That awareness is the knowing itself. That light I was describing, it's the light itself who shines, and something is known in the light. So that's the closest description I can give for that other self who's just always kind of there. Anyways, I'll stop here. And yes, Katie, I saw your hand.
I have a lot of questions. Okay. Okay. So I think I understand the first concept, which is like, okay, like I'm not my body, my physical body, like that's not who I am. I'm not my personality, right? I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. Like these are all the things that we traditionally think of when we think about who am I, right? So I
I
understand.
will also say,
Oh yeah.
I also want to say, yes, you can say that. And at the same time, I'm not offering a conclusion that you're not this, or for an understanding. Yeah, you can say I'm not what I see, like the body and thoughts or emotions. Yes.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I don't want to give, I'm not forming a conclusion that you're not this.
Okay. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, because this one time I did a really nice meditation. I think it was with you and some other person, but it was all
Mm.
about like just going through and like looking for where you are in your body and not finding it.
Mhm.
And I found that very peaceful to sort of like get to come to the conclusion that like I kind of don't exist or something. Like there was something very peaceful about it for a moment during that meditation. Like it was sort of like, well, if I'm like whatever, then nothing matters. It was just this moment of like peacefulness.
Mhm.
And I guess, I don't know, I guess I'm wondering like about the utilization of like this non-duality practice. Like, okay, like if we get to the point where we can kind of understand this or feel it or something, like what, like why are we doing it? I don't know.
Yeah. Mm. Thank you so much for your question. One thing is I can definitely relate. So I, as a person, can so relate to that experience of peace. And that is why this seeking keeps going on. So my current, let's say my current process looks like there's a long stretches of peace, and then there are some stretches of like, oh God, it's getting stuck in something, and then looking for the peace again. So that's this Mahip character comes up and disappears and comes up and disappears. That's the fashion. So I understand, I can relate to it because it's happening all the time, comes up and goes away, kind of. And peace is really easily there when this character is not trying to do something. That's my experience. And then the practice of non-duality, I want to say like there's no practice is non-dual. Practice itself will have a practitioner, the object of practice. For example, I can focus on my breathing. Breath is the object. I, as a person, am looking at the breath. There are already two people here, two things here. So each practice, every single, even though I might have said this in past, non-dual practices, and we throw these terms, but like the more I reflect on it, non-dual itself means not two. So there's a contradiction that Mahip itself has created in past by calling a practice non-dual, because how can there be two things? Practice has two things in it, or let's say three. Practitioner, the object of practice, breath or a candle or whatever, or mantra, and the process, the connection, the bridge between them. So there are three things happening there. Essentially, they are one. That's what traditionally said. So there is non-duality here, even in this moment. But then calling a practice non-dual practice, yeah, just wanted to like, that's what came to my mind. Like, so if we are practicing something, then there is seeking going on. And each practice actually takes you away from non-duality. So I know that's a very, so every single practice, whether it's wherever it's coming from, even they come from the Advaita tradition, for example, which is itself non-duality, is a practice. In my own, this practice that I mentioned earlier, who am I? Who am I? It is a practice. It is a technique, and it is dualistic. Somebody is looking for somebody. There are two there. So non-duality, for non-duality, nothing has to happen. Nothing really is happening. Like the screen right now, there are, let's say, apparently five people are moving around. So much is happening, questions and thoughts and feelings. So much is happening, but the screen has not moved from the point we started. Like screen is exactly as it is, never changed, never moved. So the screen is non-dual. And the story of this movie of these people is apparently playing onto this screen, which has actually never moved. So that is the pointer towards non-duality, but non-duality cannot be experienced because in experience, there is an experiencer and the object which is experienced. So we can only, that's why this group is, we can explore it, we can try to explore it and probably most likely fail in understanding it. Does that make sense or not make sense?
I think for me, this not all these concepts are always like hard for my brain to
Yeah.
understand. And I think every time we talk about it, I get it a little bit more. But to be honest, like, yes, I personally have a hard time with these concepts, like just understand.
Good. That's great. Can I ask you, who's this I? When you say
Oh,
I have a hard time, who's this I?
one of my many characters. um, my thoughts have a hard time.
The thoughts have a hard time. Good. So of course, look at a thought. What is a thought? Let's like a thought is nothing but like a small box. So many tiny boxes come up and go in our mind, like a train of tiny boxes arising and going, or like bubbles coming up. So many tiny bubbles, like thought. And what we are pointing towards is this open, infinite, empty, full sky. Look at the bubble. Can the bubble ever contain? The bubble has a glimpse of that sky, or the box has a glimpse of that empty, open, infinite space, because it has a little bit of that space within that bubble, sure, but the bubble will never, because you're seeing through the lens of a bubble, and what you want to see is the sky. When you're sitting inside a bubble and trying to see the sky, of course, impossible. So
Yeah,
it's really okay. It's okay to not get it.
okay. Yeah, because there's just so much more than
Yeah.
my thought.
Thank you for letting me explore that. Anything else that's coming up for anyone or any? Yes, Gloria.
When I heard Catherine say, then why am I doing this? And I thought, wow, that's a good question. I can't answer that. And then you were explaining how the seeking and avoiding thoughts and behavior happens in a person. I was kind of connecting it to myself. So in my brain, I'm seeking the answer to alleviate my pain, and then to trying to accept it or like not wanting it anymore is like avoiding the pain. And then your smallest and biggest comes in, and I thought, oh, the new state that I kind of felt was maybe the non-duality one. And then you were talking, the last sentence really threw me off. You were saying the feeling that you have that, something like, when you, tell me if I'm wrong, the feeling that you felt that you are aware of yourself the moment you are still being, probably that small s is still being aware of that big S, that it is also or still duality. So I thought my third stage was like, oh, it's non-duality is happening. But then when I think or feel that, oh, non-duality is happening, that's already going back to duality.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to stay there then.
Yeah. Let me, it's not hard to stay there. It is impossible to stay there. For this I, for the, so what you're hoping for, wait, so there is a seeking that this Gloria, what you really, there's a seeking that this Gloria I self wants to just stay that. So it's like, again, I'll go back to it. There's a thought or a feeling, which is again like a bubble. Now the bubble wants to be that sky. So as long as you are the bubble, you cannot be the sky is there. Trying to, when the bubble is trying to be the sky, it is impossible. It's not hard. It will never happen. It will never happen for the bubble. I know that's super hopeless, and that's the truth. See, the hope itself keeps us, like, creates a trap. Expectation or hope, both are
Oh,
what give us some future fantasy, like. So that's why I'm saying, and it's same truth for this Mahi bubble. This bubble will never be the sky.
then it's like Catherine's question, why am I doing this? But I when little after that, I thought the moment, this just 1 second of moment that I was able to step back, that one moment was no suffering. So if we practice to get to that stage more often, and if humans can do that more often, then I think they will make themselves suffer less, which is peace within themselves.
I had another comment because Gloria, while you were talking, I kind of answered my own question and mostly what Mahib has to say. But I was like, why do we do this? And my first thought was what you think, right? Which is like, oh, because it relieves suffering even for a moment. And it's like this amazing, beautiful thing that I really only had it for 2 seconds in it. I still think about it. This was like months ago. So yes, but then I thought, well, maybe we just do it to see what happens. And like maybe sometimes that happens and maybe sometimes it doesn't and something else happens. So then I kind of answered my question for myself. I think I just do it to explore and see what happens. Good, bad, neutral. A lot of times nothing happens and that's okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say in all these situations, the I keeps going on. So the identification that with the bubble, the small self, goes on. Now, whether it's like curiosity or like what's going to happen, or whether it's like, oh, the more, if I practice more, I will get more peace. That is again a way to give energy to fuel this small cell. So that's it. That's how it stays in control. So even the most noble cause of alleviating human suffering, that's usually, it's written in my dissertation, like that's what my purpose of the dissertation is about. And I've said this, I always teach meditations and I say, may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, may all be liberated. So that is there, and that itself is another way to keep this I go on. So in a way that leads to suffering also. Or I'm saying suffering, I don't want to say, actually I want to say just the I will go on. By labeling it as suffering or not is another form of, another thought or a judgment to that experience. What other perspective that I want to offer here is the bubble can never be the sky. It is impossible. And who you really are is already that. So this bubble separate self will try to keep looking for its own annihilation. The bubble will keep looking for the small self. Ego will always try to look for how can I just find peace. And I'm saying that sky is peace. That is who you are anyways. This bubble arises apparently. Just like right now, the screen is who you are when you are anyways. Apparently these characters are arising and moving and saying things. And not even for a second, you stop being that screen of awareness. So you were never not that. Anyways, that which the small self is trying to be is already you, is already here. But this energy keeps going on that I have to do something to get there. And that is out of habit. Any thoughts or questions or reflections on this? Yes.
So maybe this is what people say about resilience. This going on and on, whatever, what level, what stage, each person is going through the survival of self. And if it's even let's say people whose behaviors or thoughts are deviant from the norm, doing criminal thing, they are going on their own survival, and their resilience to live on could be criminal way, but they are still doing to survive. And they are the opposite, where there are people who are doing good deeds or who are going through hardships through work or life, but they're still going on, which people call it resilience. And maybe that's how people just go on.
Yeah, that's a perspective. I would just, I know that's a hypothetical situation of what's going on there. I would just say, maybe not. I have no strong opinions about it. I am staying here in this current experience of what's arising now.
Yeah. My brain was doing the seeking.
Sure. Good noticing, really good noticing.
Yeah, one thing that's coming up for me, I'm just thinking about I think another thing that I struggle with is trying to surrender to whatever is happening. And then also the seeking or the control, me wanting to control things or trying to alleviate suffering or that seeking part.
Mm.
That's just something I was thinking about in my head, that I feel that I very much a waver between the two, seeking and then being like, no, just chill, like let it, whatever be. And then seeking, like, no, I really want this, or I need this, or could you do this, or, you know, that kind of thing, to
Mhm.
just letting everything go. I don't know. Anyway, that's what came up for me.
Sure. I can relate to that. The seeker in this system also has very similar tendencies. And then letting go itself is an effort. So I just want to point out that open spaciousness, like let's say this is a problem. Oh, this is a hard emotion that's here. Let's say a really hard emotion, really hard. It's causing unpleasant sensations in the body, and mind is like wants to get rid of it. And then comes a wisdom thought, oh, let go, let go, let go. And so let's say now the effort of let go, let go, let go, let go, or accept it, accept it, accept it. But see, both are actually something that is arising in this empty space. And I'm saying the fact that this is here is the empty space has already accepted it. This hard emotion or feeling, the moment it comes up, or a memory, the moment it's here, the empty space has already accepted it as it is. Usually there's another one who resists it. Which is called usually the I don't like it. I want to get rid of it. I can't bear this. This is too painful to me. So often there's a resistance there, which we don't notice. So there are, let's say, three parts. One is the actual experience of fear, pain, or difficult emotion, memory, whatever. Number two is like, go away. I don't want it. Get out. Get out. Resistance. Then comes number three, the one who has some wisdom, like, okay, let's accept. So there are actually three, but then all three are just, let's say, parts. All are accepted exactly as they are in this empty open space of awareness. So from the point of the awareness, nothing has to be done. And they are just doing. Three thoughts are here. Three different feelings or parts are here. That's all.
I think I get it, like when you zoom out and this peacefulness comes over me just by accident. But like when I zoom out and just observe all those things happening, I do feel a sense of detachment and peace. Not that that's the point, but like it is interesting that when you zoom out and you're just like, oh God, like all these things are fighting, like, you know, it does feel peaceful to just look down on them and observe them coming and going.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experience. Any other thoughts, comments, reflections, or questions? I'm just curious, Ash, I know you had to leave earlier. So just checking. Is there something that you want?
Oh, thanks for checking. Yeah, I'll have to leave.
Your voice is not coming for some reason.
Still no? You can't
Oh
hear
yeah,
me?
it's coming. Oh, I can now.
Yeah, I'll have to leave in just a few minutes, but it's been a real pleasure to be here. Nice, of course, to hear some talk of parts. That's the world I come from. And yeah, I mean, I have a million thoughts. I kind of am hesitant to just info dump them into the space. But I think this, this question of when effort and practice and striving is part of non-dual being, and when it's part of the little s self, when it's part of the I, is a really fascinating one to me. I think, when we maybe the first time that we brush our teeth, it takes striving to do it because we don't really want to. It's unfamiliar to us. We don't really get the benefit of it. We don't know how it feels. We don't know how it feels to do it right. And we have to push every step of the way. And after brushing our teeth for a year or so, it no longer is an act of effort or striving. It is just part of the texture of being. And, you know, maybe this experience of spaciousness is a little the same way, that maybe, you know, even if it sometimes takes acts of the little less self to get us in the practice of it. Once we know the feel of it, once we are in our spaciousness, then it becomes possible to let go of that striving and just to be in it rather than to be seeking it. So that I don't know that, you know, you said that seeking like this just adds energy to the I, which leads ultimately to suffering. And in my experience, that can be true, certainly with some kinds of seeking, particularly if you are using meditation as a way to bypass emotion and to bypass pain. You know, there are some uses that the I can put meditation to that take you farther away from spaciousness. Yeah, but I wonder if it's true that inevitably the I only becomes stronger through that kind of practice.
Again, thank you for sharing and thank you for pointing out. And yes, I too, that's not always true. It's only one side of the truth. So you're right. I don't know, and it happens, and thank you. It happens that I say things and they sound conclusive. And in that moment, I might have an opinionated way of saying it, but I really don't want to offer opinions or conclusions, because that itself becomes a box, and then no box can contain truth. So thank you for pointing out. And I know I said something that what you were saying, and that I also, as I was hearing, I also don't agree that this always leads to that kind of suffering. Yeah. So I will take that comment back. Like, I don't know. This I is still figuring out. This I is still in the process of sometimes really feeling sure. Oh yeah, this is it. And suddenly it's gone and lost and unclear and confused. So I'm just noticing this Mahib going through different aspects of knowing and unknowing. For this is a strong tendency to form conclusions and concepts. And also there's another tendency of not getting attached to them. And I think Katie told me once, when you hold something loosely, so concepts are there many here. There's also an ability to hold them very loosely. So yeah, I don't want to offer a conclusion or a finality. That's why I try my best to remember and to say it like this is not like a teaching, and this is more like sharing of my experience, and also invitation that you can share your experience. And then we try to figure out the unfigure out table together.
Thank you, Mahib. I love the way that you hold.
I can't hear you again.
I just wanted to say thank you. I love the way that you hold these truths so lightly. I mean, they have to be held lightly because they're unholdable. And you really share some beautiful wisdom. I feel very grateful to have been a part of the group today. I do need to head out of here, but thank you, everybody. It was really nice to be here.
Yeah, Thank you so much for joining us. Bye bye, Ash.
Bye.
Okay, we have last few minutes. Any other questions or reflections before we end?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why do you like to do this stuff?
So it's very selfish and it's very personal. This, even though there's a knowing that nothing really is happening, I see the world often through that impersonal screen. Just like the screen doesn't care which movie you are playing on the screen, whether it's Avengers or Harry Potter. So I know from that point, this is impersonal. This looks very meaningful and it's meaningless at the same time. And yet the person might, which is the current movie that is apparently happening, has this immense desire to connect with people, to be with people, to engage with people, and to have fun exploring the nature of reality itself and the nature of our existence. There's a strong pull, there's a strong desire to do those things. And that's what gives me joy and happiness and peace. It's like, yeah. And these are the moments that I get to just be who I really am. Even though, and in this whole hour, somehow, what happens is I see the hands moving, I see the words coming out. But it just feels like a really movie, as if I'm watching the Mahip movie. And it's pretty good, feels pretty good. It's like out of body experience. And at the same time, very immersive. And it's so impersonal and at the same time, so personal and so intimate. So that's why it's like a nourishment to this system. Thank you for asking. That's why I do this group and I will continue to do this to hold space where I can just be myself. They don't have to teach anything. I just have to, I'm offering my friendship and I'm building more friends.
Yeah, it sounds like there's something, I like the word nourishing that you used.
Hmm.
And the other word I was thinking as you were talking is fulfilling.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like, I think those are great reasons.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Hmm. Anything else? Any other last comments? Yes, Gloria.
I'm gonna go back. Then Mahip,
Hmm.
if you say we can never be the sky, we'll always be in the bubble.
Mhm.
Why do you do it? I do it. I will continue to listen to you and maybe practice
Mhm.
to be like nothing. It's good to feel nothing. It's not really nothing. It's, to me, it's nothingness, yet it's full of goodness.
Yes.
And if that's not being non-dual, it's okay. I'm still in the bubble, cannot be the sky, but I'm feeling free and full. I don't know, full of nothing seems a weird word, but why, knowing that you Mahip cannot get out of the bubble,
Yeah.
why do you do it?
So there's nobody, I'm going to give you a very frustrating answer. There's nobody doing nothing. Nothing is really happening here. So there's nobody, there's no Mahip. actually doing anything, and there's nothing here.
I will have to ponder on that. It'll take days. My whole life.
Yeah,
But
it will
okay.
take forever for the Gloria,
uh-huh.
but it will take no time at all for that which you are already, because that is timeless. See, another bubble of time.
Yes.
When I'm doing something, this also is, the bubble has the dimensions of time, space, and other, and like so much is happening, like a dream. In a dream, there's a time. This is Mahip. There's a character Mahip walking in a park, and there are other people saying hi bye and walking their dogs. There's bushes, there's a lake, ducks and birds flying. There's so much. All of that is nothing but one mind being projected as the time, the space, the entire world is created out of one mind. So even the ducks is nothing but one. The lake is nothing but that mind. Substance out of which this grass in the park, and the substance out of which Mahip and those dogs and other people are made out of, is nothing but one mind in the dream. And that mind itself is creating the entire dream. So that character walking and those dogs and ducks will never know that mind. Okay. But they are the mind anyways. See, they are made out of that substance, which is that mind. So no matter how hard they try, they will never know the totality of the mind. They can only know that tiny bubble that they are. They think they are. And it's Mahip, the character, is okay with that, not knowing. Mahip is okay with that not knowing, because in that not knowing is the deepest knowing.
Thank you. With that last sentence, I can be at peace.
Sure. You are peace. It's amazing. I feel so happy with just by chatting and with being here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I am also continuing to, this is only the second week. I want to have this every week. So invite your friends or whoever you think would enjoy this kind of discussion. And I will hopefully see you next week, same time. And I'm going to put the recording on my YouTube, on my website and my YouTube channel. So you can also listen to this again if you want to. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a really nice week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.